Welcome, everyone. This is Dr. Alana James, and this is the first of the Let's Get Published series. We're delighted for the people in the room and also for the many people who will watch over time by recording. And people are just joining us as well, so I'll say hello to Anastasio and to Annalene. Today's an exciting day. This is a series of 6 webinars over a period of almost 3 months with the intention of having enough time in between sessions in order for people to do the writing and research homework. I say research not in the idea of collecting data, but as in researching the kind of publications you want to write for, etc. But there will be homework each time that will move us on, and then after we're well established in where we want to be writing, we'll begin actually putting documents together, and then our time together here in the webinars will be looking at those documents and tearing apart what works and what doesn't work so well, because peer review is the essence of being able to get published. So it's our intention that this becomes a group that is anonymous for people and where they can experience peer review and get comfortable with it, because it can be difficult for people. And through that, have their writing grow, be in a better place when they do send it into a publisher to get published. And what I mean by anonymous is that in future weeks, when we have work that is written, I'm going to request that people in the group send it in to me by email, and then I'll take names off of it and post it, and we will discuss it as we are discussing anyone's work. So your work will be able to be discussed by a group without anyone ever having known whose exactly it is, etc. That takes such a burden, and that's actually the way that journals are reviewed as well. The author takes out all identifying comments, so that no reviewer is ever caught in a position where they're reviewing somebody's work that they know and therefore might be more uncomfortable providing as critical a review as they can. So this is a process, and it's a very important process. As you know, if you've looked me up on the web, I write books, primarily for Sage Publishing, and the story that I'll tell as I go into this is that my first book was by accident. My own doctoral work led to a place where I had the outcome. The people who had done the research with me each had a chapter. We put them together in a binding and sent them off to Sage, because I knew that Sage published books on action research. And they came back to me and they said, well, we don't actually publish that kind of book. We publish textbooks. But if you want to write a textbook on action research, please send in your proposal. Well, you never have a publisher say to you, would you like to be published by us, and not follow through. And now 3 books later, I find them a very good publishing house, and I'm very happy to be one of the people who writes for them. So we never know. That's intended to just tell you that however your process goes on with getting published, it puts you into another world, and it's very important. So I'm delighted to have you here. Let's look at our work today. As those of you who know, who come to our webinars and conferences, I like to think about what other people say in quotations. So Ernest Hemingway is quite an interesting man, and he said, there is nothing to writing. All you do is sit down at a typewriter and bleed. And I think that's important for us to remember we are not alone when our minds tie up in little knots and we face our insecurities with our hands on a keyboard. Nothing stinks like a pile of unpublished writing. And in writing and politicking, it's best not to think about it, just to do it. We have two goals. The big goal, the overarching goal that will tie all of these 6 topics or webinars together is that by the end of August, I'm hoping that all of you will have something ready to send to a publisher. And the goal for today is to find the place you want to get published, have the guidelines, and then discuss and determine the voice of your article. So that's where we're heading. We're going to get there by discussing the map on the DoctoralNet site, how you use it, the steps involved, preparation for writing, and the homework. And if you remind me at the end, please, I also have some other resources that I forgot to put in the slides that you might find interesting to review sometime during the next 6 weeks. So let's get started. All right. All of you have access to one of the DoctoralNet portals. When you sign in, getting published is phase 4. It is the first part of your portal. So for Batul, it would be dcu.doctoralnet, and for Elena, it would be tamucc.doctoralnet.com. But then /phase-4-map-1-2-4-.html. Or you can just go to phase 4. The very first thing on the phase 4 menu is the map. This is the whole map, but it's intended to ask you questions, and then when you say yes or no, it leads you to resources that are available to you, and the map's actually broken out into more detail on the site. So should you be working at home, not quite sure what you want to do next, or maybe you want to push ahead or whatever, you want to overview the entire series of what we'll be doing, this is the place you go get that done. And for those of you who are working at any other portion of the doctoral work, every phase has a map just like this that leads you from one place to another. So the steps. First step is to prepare ourselves, to find a theme, what we would call at DoctoralNet the golden thread of ideas that we want to hook together through our writing, to decide what kind of article we want to write, and to find the journal that makes the most sense, and then we'll have some homework. So, I may come back to that slide. Let's talk, though, a little more for a minute about preparation. These are thought questions, and so I think perhaps you're going to want them in the handouts. And what I'll do is I will put up your, I think I can do it, I'm going right now to the DoctoralNet page, and I believe I can put up handouts. Yes, I can add a file. So I'm going to put the handouts, the slides for the first Get Published are going to go up on for links and thought questions and you will find them in just a second on the Doctoral Net page, bulletin page, which you can find. I'm back in the room and I'm adding it to the chat. So in another tab, you can go there and the files will be up, and they're uploading right now. So think about these as though they are things that you're going to come back to, but you can think about them now. If you are on your writing, if you're thinking about your writing right now, give yourself a score, and if you're brave, give it to us in the chat with commas in between. If you think about your writing, how concise are you? Score of 1 to 5, 5 being very concise, 1 being very long-winded. How provocative is your writing? Do you think you have a sexy topic, one that others are naturally interested in because it's at the center of what is happening in your cultural experience at the moment? Is your writing easy to read? And is your voice strong? So I'm going to take a minute and put in my 1 to 5 and ask any of you who are brave enough to speak out in front of a group to do the same. So that would be mine. And now bear in mind that those come after 15 years of writing. I still have the worst challenge here with being concise. I like words, so I put a lot of them down. But I have developed a strong voice, and I believe, now I could be deluding myself, those of you who will read what I'm writing, because I too am going to get work towards getting published, might say later that you don't think this is true, but my voice sounds like me. If you read my writing, I think you also hear the same person who is talking. Annaline, very good. Excellent that you can write. So yes, you're concise, better than me, provocative. Well, you were writing about, I think, I don't know, provocative and sexy. I think your work might be, depending on how it turns out with the research. A lot of provocative and sexy has to do with our topic area, doesn't it? And some of us just naturally have more provocative, sexy topic areas. Easy to read. Yes, very easy to read, but working on developing your voice. Elena, very solid strength in your writing. Glad to see it. Most comfortable with the sexiness of your topic. And I know, just because of a conversation Batul and I had, that he also has a sexy topic because he's working with entrepreneurship. And right now, although it might not be as hot as it was 2 years ago, it's still very much a hot topic around the world. Okay, now from that, this is always good to come back to think to ourselves, where am I in my writing? Because writing is a skill, and it's also good to think about these as targets that we want to hit as we write all the time. We always want to be concise, provocative, upscale, how interesting we are, have a voice that's easy to read, and also a voice that's strongly ours. Now, if we look at our references, we will get our first idea of where we want to be published. So there, right below the chat box, for those of you that are new, there's a little hand. Raise your hand if you were able to do your homework. couple of hands. I'll go through mine, but then I look for those who were able to do the homework to help me out with your experience. What we're doing is looking to find the place that you won't want to shoot for publishing. You're writing not just any generic journal article, but you're writing for a particular publication that has a particular editor, that has a particular interest in certain things, and you will end up crafting your document to get published by being very clear on who is going to be the publisher. So when I went through this exercise, so this is a case study using me as an example, the list of 15 were the journals that came up. Oh, apologies for the noise. I will turn it right off. Where is it? Don't you hate it when you have a, there we go. You have a background noise and you have to find it in your computer. So we had 15, I had 15 journals, and then I used the same sheet as I was figuring out which ones would work. So first thing I did is I listed the journals. Second thing I did is I went to their page on the web and I looked for, they put them under a number of headings, but scope and was one of them. For authors was another one. But there was a series of words that said what they looked for. And so the first one was out of business, so it got crossed off. The second one was only psychotherapy, it got crossed off. The third one would have worked if I had a particularly qualitative spin to what I was doing. And I am a qualitative researcher, so I would keep that in mind for the future. I left it on the list, but I didn't turn it red. International Journal of Doctoral Studies was only research, and my work right now is more essay. I quote data that come in through surveys. I'm writing about PhDs finishing. I'm also writing about graduate schools upgrading the technology of their services and building the articles that I'm going to try to get published this summer have to do with building a technology infrastructure across the graduate life cycle. So while International Journal of Doctoral Studies might be a good one for me in the future, I'm not really basing my work on research as much as on ideas right now. So that's something you'll want to consider on a scale of 1 to 5. How much is it? Will you have data and data quotable empirical research, or will you be working with the ideas of your topic? You need to find, that's a very important differentiation, and you need to find journals that allow for that differentiation. So if we go down, the couple that I put in red, higher education examines developments, I write about developments, reports on analyses of particular problems. I might be able to fit under that one. Presents fresh ideas in higher education in a straightforward and readable fashion. The journal features descriptions and evaluations of current innovations and provocative new ideas with relevance for action beyond the immediate context. I have written things for that. That would be a good one. I don't know if what I'm writing right now quite fits. Journal of Information Technology talks about innovations in practice, and this idea about building technology across a graduate life cycle is an innovation. Higher Education Review to help formulate the problems of higher education, and the fact that graduate schools don't have great technology to back them up is one of the problems. So there's a series, there were 4 couple, and you'll come up with a list similar to this. Are any of them bad? No. Are any of them good? Maybe. And what do I do to figure out what's next? I'm going to have to get articles and I'm going to have to decide. But before I do that, let's talk a little bit more about how we measure this list of journals that we come up with for our own selves. So these three come from journals, and they give you a sense of how editors write differently. Now, your topics are going to be different. You're going to be looking perhaps at different kinds of journals, but some of you may be writing for a higher educational environment as well. So one said, these pages are open to a variety of forms: original scholarly activity, such as qualitative research studies, critical commentaries, editorials, or debates concerning pertinent issues and topics, news of networking and research possibilities, and other sorts of journalistic literary shapes which may be of interest, which may interest and pique readers. Well, if you're trying to get, and Elena, I'll answer your question in a second. If you're trying to do something a bit out of the established norm of a research paper, most journals publish empirical research, and their empirical research follows a particular design. Most often that design looks like the same design as the 5 chapters of most dissertations or theses. So you have an introduction, then you talk about the lit, then you talk about how you studied, what were the outcomes, and what were the findings and the discussion. And those 5 subject heading generalities play out through all scientific research. They'll even play out to some extent through what I write, although I'm writing more essay, make a point kind of pieces right now. So with this first one, could I perhaps write for that one? Well, literary shapes which may interest and pique readers. That's very loose, isn't it? I don't know exactly what they mean by that, but I would have to go back and study what they are. I would have to read their journal articles to see if there was one I could kind of see my stuff fitting in that general realm. Now, compare that to the second one. This journal publishes conceptual, theoretical, and empirical papers. So this journal probably has much tighter headings that everybody uses. A quick jumping through the journal, you can look at the headings, how people put their articles together, and probably you're going to find it comes within a range. Now that's handy to you as you're choosing a journal, because if you fit in that range, easy peasy, you've got the range, it's easy to write to. It's like going down a road that's been a highway and well paved. You'll have lots of examples to work from, and you'll be able to maneuver your ideas into those places much easier than if you're trying to interest and pique readers, whatever that means, so then you're a little looser, you don't quite know where you're going, it gets a little bit more frustrating or confusing as you are writing. Am I making sense? Raise your hand if you're beginning to see where I'm going with this. This is the point I want to be making is that when we read about journal articles, we are getting a sense of who they are, and then we have to look at who we are in order to make the decision. And Laura and a few others who came in late, welcome. All right, so the third journal that I copied things from said, we look to publish new ideas and innovations early. Consequently, the evidential support needed for the findings or recommendations would not necessarily be that normally expected for rigorous, fully mature research. Now, this tells me that they're looking for articles that follow the same pattern of introduction, lit review, methodology, results, and findings, but that they will let you play with that pattern because you may be thinking and having an idea, and you may have just started to test out the results of that idea. Okay, now is a great time for you to ask questions, and I will start with Elena's. What is the bib software, or where did I run this search? Okay, so now we're backing up to this page. Let's talk about, and I don't mind nuts and bolts questions at all. Let's talk about bibliographic software. On any Doctoral Net portal, you'll be able to go to, there's a couple of places where I go into bibliographic software at length, how to use it, how it supports your writing, etc. And I will, if you're interested, I will put it in as a short topic next time. But if you go to any of the Doctoral Net sites, on the Resources tab, there is a under tab that is for videos. You go to the video page and you type in bibliographic software or software, just software, and you'll get a number of links where we have talked about literature review and how to use bibliographic software. I'm an EndNote user, although I have used Mendeley when I've done collaborative bibliographic work. And so I use it as an example, but it's good all the way around. Another thing, though, is that if writing is a little bit of extra support in the nuts and bolts of writing would be good for you, then I strongly recommend you take the 30-day writing challenge. It's an opt-in also under the Resources tab. And you get a video every day for 30 days. It's only 5 minutes. And myself and the professors that work with us each took a series of topics about writing and gave it 5 minutes. And some of those topics are very key. How do you use Word? How do you use bibliographic software? How do you manage your headings? So if you're interested in nuts and bolts, it's a good, quick way to get 30 of the best ones. You can keep resubmitting and resubmit elsewhere. Okay, so just for the people watching by recording, we have a question that you had a paper which had some negative reviews. First off, negative reviews are really common and we often have them. So how negative they are is along a spectrum. Usually a journal will, and you'll have to tell me if this is true for yours, usually a journal will say resubmit or not. If it says no resubmit, like they really didn't think it fit the journal, most of the time if it fits the journal, even though they're not so happy with the way it's written at the moment, they will tell you to go ahead and resubmit. Now, how many resubmissions are possible? Well, it kind of depends on the journal and how many. What you don't know, which background information, is you don't know how many they are getting. So on our portals, if you go to the video section and you find videos by Joanne Preston, Joanne is a longtime journal editor, and she gives you some insights about what it's like from the journal editor's point of view. How many second submissions are successful? Oh, I would say 85%. If a second submission was requested and you really pin down the peer reviews. If you don't have, but you need to really know you're pinning down the peer reviews. There could be people out there who are trying to do this on their own. First time you go through all of this. But if you bring those here, we will really help you make sure that you get that second one done. Another question has come in, is there a, you can resubmit with responses. That's great. That's great. And you have a couple of ways in the resubmission process to highlight how you have responded to their comments. And you can make that a separate table as well. so they can see how you've responded, or you can just turn it in as a brand new document. There's he's taking us into a realm that will be talked about more in depth at later sessions, but there's this whole business of getting published has some fine-tuning and some political differences. So some people who write a lot would tell you just to turn in a brand new blank one, and others would say, oh no, it's always good to be really crystal clear how you answered their reviews. Tool says, is there a specific strategy to write an analytic lit review? And do you have any books that you suggest for such strategies? I'm going to put this one on a burner for the back burner, and then let me get to it at the end. Tell me if I don't answer it. But I have very specific strategies that don't require books. And how to avoid writing a descriptive lit review. Yeah, actually, there are quite a few things on the whole lit review process. I probably do a webinar on it 2 or 3 times a year. And so once again, resources, video resources, lit review, you'll get a sense of the fact that it's a funnel, how you talk to your reader, how you you bring out the golden thread so that you're not descriptive. You're moving towards, you are asking great questions. I'm going to go back to the slides, and then I'm getting a sense that you really want to kick this up to a sense of how to write for a reader. And I think I might be able to blend that with the nuts and bolts thing I had intended for next week. So let me think about that as I talk, and we'll come back to it later. All right, so you're measuring what I've said. Then with all of this in mind, you have a list like this. Oh, and Elena asked me about asked me, how did I come up with this list? I looked at the people in my bibliographic software. So the people that I cite the most write for these journals. And then I looked at, if I cite them, then I'm in the same line with them, then they would be the ones that I would look into. How did I find out what they did? Is I simply went to their website and did some research into what they are looking for, and that led me to cross some off, to keep some for maybes, and to hone in on 3 or 4. Then what do I do? Okay, this is the measurement part. Journals, being a journal is a really competitive environment. You can imagine there's so many journals right now. So journals get measured by something, couple of somethings, but one something is called impact rate. And generally, the higher the impact, the more people, it's considered a good, quote, unquote, journal, and the more people who submit, and therefore the lower the acceptance rate. So, in other words, the bigger the challenge you have in choosing that journal over others, but in some worlds, the bigger the accumulated success of being able to publish in those journals. So I went to the web and I said, the stuff on the left of this slide is from the web asking, how do I find the impact measure? And it told me a lot of things. Actually, it didn't work for me, but what it said was I would be in my database and I would find a journal article, and when I clicked on the journal, the name of the journal, I would be able to click in and see